Welcome to the TokyoBill Weekly, stories from Japan, told from Japan. This week, Japan wants your students, your researchers, and your workers. Just not, if it can possibly help it, your permanent presence. In February 2026, Japan's Ministry of Education announced that it had certified 11 university faculties across 3 national institutions under a new exemption framework. Under the previous system, universities faced financial penalties for exceeding approved enrollment caps, a rule widely seen as discouraging institutions from expanding international admissions. The newly certified faculties can now recruit international students above their standard caps by up to 5%. That might sound modest, but consider what it represents structurally. Japan's national universities have operated under enrollment penalty rules for decades. This exemption framework is the first formal mechanism allowing them to actively grow international student numbers beyond approved limits. The direction of travel is clear. Japan wants more foreign students, and it is beginning to move the institutional furniture to make room for them. Japan's international student population reached approximately 435,000 as of June 2025, up over 8% year-on-year, surpassing the government's target of 400,000, 8 years ahead of schedule. The recruitment drive is real, well-funded, and accelerating. Scholarship programs have been expanded. English-taught degree programs have multiplied. The pitch to prospective students abroad is coherent and well-resourced. Come and study here, in one of the world's great cities, at a fraction of what a comparable degree would cost in the United States or the United Kingdom. And yet, at almost exactly the same moment that the Ministry of Education was opening enrollment caps for international students, the Ministry of Justice was doing something rather different. In April of this year, Japan doubled the residency requirement for naturalization, the process by which a foreign resident becomes a Japanese citizen, from 5 years to 10. Japan's new 10-year standard places it among the strictest naturalization timelines in the developed world. The United States requires 5 years of permanent residency before citizenship eligibility. Germany recently reduced its requirement from 8 to 5 years. France requires 5 years. Japan's 10-year requirement now exceeds all of these, compounded by the country's prohibition on dual citizenship. That change came on top of a February tightening of permanent residency rules, which now require applicants to hold the maximum permitted period of stay under their current visa before they can even file. And a government survey released on May 19th, just last week as this episode goes out, found that 47% of foreign residents in Japan have experienced some form of discrimination in their everyday lives. That is nearly 1 in 2 people. The survey was conducted by the Immigration Services Agency itself, which gives it particular weight. This is not a result that can be dismissed as the product of outside critics. So here is the situation in plain terms. Japan is actively recruiting international students and foreign workers. It has over 4 million foreign residents, a record high. Its economy structurally depends on that number growing. Projections suggest Japan could face a labor shortage of around 3.5 million people by 2030, potentially swelling to 11 million by 2040. And simultaneously, the government is making it harder to stay permanently, harder to become a citizen, and, if its own survey data is to be believed, failing to address the discrimination that nearly half of those already here encounter in their daily lives. To understand how Japan arrived at this position, you need one sentence of background that explains almost everything. The Japanese government has long affirmed a familiar contradiction. Japan will expand its reliance on foreign labor while insisting it has no immigration policy. That formulation, "We are not an immigration country," has been the official position of successive Japanese governments for decades. It was restated explicitly in parliamentary deliberations as recently as June 2024, and it has survived contact with a reality that looks, to almost any outside observer, unmistakably like immigration. In the post-war period, Japan upheld the principle of not adopting an immigration policy and taking a cautious approach toward unskilled workers. Since the 1990s, however, as population aging and labor shortages became structural challenges, Japan's institutional framework was gradually expanded. The mechanism was always the side door. Not immigration, but technical trainee programs. Not settlement, but specified skills visas. Not citizens, but workers on renewable terms. The language was carefully chosen to avoid saying what was actually happening. What has emerged is a state separating economic incorporation from political incorporation. You are welcome here in an economic sense. You can work, pay taxes, contribute to the pension system, fill the nursing home rosters and the construction crews and the university research labs that Japan needs filled. But membership in the national community, the right to vote, to hold a passport, to be formally part of the country you are living in, that is a different matter, and the bar for reaching it has just been raised again. One regional governor put it plainly in January, "On the surface, the government says it will not formally adopt a policy boosting immigration, while at the same time it brings in foreign workers to make up for labor shortages." He was describing the burden this creates for local governments, who are left to fund Japanese language instruction and daily life support for foreign residents without clear national policy or funding behind them. But he was also describing something more fundamental, a system that has been designed to have it both ways, and is finding that increasingly difficult to sustain. The people arriving through the economic door are not behaving like temporary workers. They are staying. They are forming communities. They are having children who grew up in Japan, attend Japanese schools, speak Japanese as a first language, and have no meaningful life to return to in a country they may never have lived in. Demographic realities are transforming what was designed as temporary labor migration into de facto settlement migration. Employers in nursing and manufacturing need experienced foreign workers to remain for the long term. Labor turnover in those sectors is actively disruptive. The system was designed around people who would arrive, work, and leave. A growing number are arriving, working, and staying. And the system has not been redesigned to accommodate that reality. The international students are a particular case worth watching. Japan is recruiting them with one hand, scholarships, English programs, expanded enrollment caps, while the other hand has just extended the timeline to citizenship by a decade, prohibited dual nationality, and left in place a housing market where, as Ministry of Justice surveys have consistently found, a significant proportion of foreign applicants are turned away for being non-Japanese. A student who arrives at 22 to study for 4 years, stays for a postdoctoral position, finds work in industry, and wants to build a life here, now faces a timeline to citizenship that stretches well into their late 30s at the earliest. And that assumes everything goes smoothly, tax records are immaculate, and they are willing to formally renounce citizenship in the country where they were born. Conservative policymakers under Prime Minister Takaichi have increasingly framed nationality not simply as a legal status, but as membership in a historically and culturally bounded community. That framing is honest in its way. It makes explicit what the side door system always implied but never said. The question it does not answer is whether that framing is compatible with the economic reality Japan is facing, or with the dignity of the people it is simultaneously asking to come and fill the gaps. Research by one Japanese institute projects that Japan will require around 6.35 million foreign workers by 2040, nearly 4 times the number in 2020. That figure is not a policy choice, it is a demographic projection. The workers are going to be needed regardless of how the policy is framed. The only open question is what kind of country Japan is willing to be for the people it needs. Opening the university enrollment caps was a real step. Doubling the path to citizenship was a step in the opposite direction. The survey result, nearly half of foreign residents experiencing discrimination, is a reminder that policy is only part of the picture. The rest is the texture of daily life, whether you can rent an apartment, whether you are treated with ordinary respect at a counter, whether the country that needs you is also, in some meaningful sense, glad you are here. Japan is not alone in navigating this. Many wealthy countries are trying to attract the skilled workers and students their economies need, while managing the domestic politics of cultural change. But most of them have at least acknowledged that this is what they are doing. Japan is still, officially, not an immigration country. It just has 4 million foreign residents, a 47% discrimination rate, and a labor shortage that will reach 11 million by 2040 if nothing changes. At some point, the label has to catch up with the reality. That's the Tokyo Bill Weekly for May 30th, 2026. I've been, and remain, Tokyo Bill. Thank you for listening, and take care.